in for a treat. My name is Dasheika Ruffin, and I have the distinct honor of moderating tonight's discussion centered around the importance and the impact of the Georgia Senate runoff election on January the 5th. Tonight, we have assembled a distinguished panel to talk about what's really at stake, not only in Georgia, but for the entire country. Feel free to engage us on social media by posting about this discussion using the hashtag #MyVoteCounts. Also, if you have any questions for the panelists, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll do our best to get to each one of them. So now let's hop right in because there's a lot to talk about. First, I want to give our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves, starting with Greg Clay.
Hi, Greg. How are you? What's going on?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I'm honored to be here. It has been an exciting election season. And I'm very, very proud of the role that you've played, and a lot of folks that we'll hear from today have played in making Georgia this awesome environment to show the world what we're going to be able to do on January the 5th and beyond.
Absolutely.
And so in this space, I'm not only a civic leader and advocate, recently became the chief engagement officer for an app called EMPOWRD, where we're looking at turning the corner, not just with political engagement, but also civic engagement. Dasheika, as you know, the conversations and the energy that we generate in times like these to keep those conversations going, to local elections, to civic organizations, to advocacy efforts, it takes work. And so through the EMPOWRD app, we're hoping to build that community and push things forward. I've got a background in local government and have had the opportunity in this particular season to be featured on the Warnock campaign. That me and my wife, I just kind of stood there, Dasheika, and just smiled a little bit and nodded. So I'm getting a good time over that. But in addition to making phone calls, haven't necessarily been knocking a whole lot of doors, but been making a whole lot of phone calls to not just people I know, but also strangers throughout the state to make sure that we get it done. And so I'm honored to be here with such a distinguished group, and I'll yield the floor back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg, so much for being here. Next, we have Courtney English.
English here. Hope all is well. Man, what an awesome opportunity to be with so many friends. And I mean, you, Dasheika, Greg, so many others, Elena. I mean, I guess, it's really like, coming together of like I said, it's a family reunion, I should say. Real talk. So listen, man, Courtney English here for folks who I've not had the opportunity to meet. Most important part is I'm Atlanta native. Proud graduate of Frederick Douglass High School. That is the best high school, premier high school in the city of Atlanta. Don't let anybody from Mays tell you otherwise. There's some folks on the call who might feel differently, but whatever. Listen, I was a former teacher in Atlanta, former school founder, former founding teacher of a school here in Atlanta, former school board member, school board chair, did a whole lot of cool stuff in education, and have been working really for the past 4 years to improve community, because when we improve community, we improve the quality of our schools. Yeah. And when we improve the quality of our schools, we improve the quality of our communities. And so I've been in that space for quite some time, working as hard as I can to elect some phenomenal Democrats to the United States Senate, and look forward to the conversation.
Love it. Love it. I feel like we're going to have a whole bunch of high school rivalries on this panel.
We're going digital.
Next, we have Kiana Mackey.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kiana Mackey, and I'm the Deputy Digital Director at Warnock for Georgia. And I love this panel because I tell people I've worked with before. So it's really good to see all of you here in one place. It's just a little bit about me. I've been in Atlanta a little over 5 years. And when I moved here, I was originally in the nonprofit space. And then after working at several nonprofits, I joined campaigning, working for Stacey Abrams, and just continued working on campaigns. And now I'm back here in Georgia after working for Cory Booker's race in Jersey, working for Runoff for Georgia. So Really excited to be here. Honored to be on this panel with so many amazing leaders here in Atlanta. And then, of course, seeing Dasheika again and Elena. I love seeing you all. So really glad to be here, of course.
Awesome. Thank you, Kiana. Next, we have Charlene Oliver.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Good to be with you all. I think I'm the only outsider of the group. I'm currently in Tennessee, where I am. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, so I'm just really honored to be a part of this panel. So I am the co-founder and co-executive director of the Equity Alliance, and we are a Tennessee-based nonprofit grassroots organization. We basically started from the bottom, and now we're here 4 years later. We started a week after the 2016 presidential election because we saw a huge need in Tennessee for Black voter engagement. So I think the closest comparison that I can say that we are is to the New Georgia Project with NSA, started by Stacey Abrams. We are here for Black folks. We show up for Black folks, and we're here to use our voting power as a weapon in the fight for social and economic justice. So I'm just glad to be a part of this panel. And a little bit about me. So I am not a native of Tennessee. I'm originally from Little Rock, Arkansas, and moved here to Tennessee. Been here all of my adult life. I'm a Vanderbilt graduate, also a graduate of the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, got a master's in public administration. And I'm former Congressman Jim Cooper congressional aide. I worked in his office for 2 years, and I have a background in nonprofit management and public relations and communications.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Tennessee. Next, we have Elena.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Good to see you all. As Dasheika said, I'm Elena Rains. I am a member of the committee. My work sits on a very targeted spectrum. I provide strategy, resources, and guidance to political candidates and nonprofits in their efforts to encourage civic engagement for traditionally disadvantaged or disengaged communities. So helping the boots on the ground.
Awesome. Great seeing you, Elena. Next, we have Carlos Scott.
Hey, good evening, everybody. How's everyone?
Good.
Good. My name is Carlos Scott. I'm currently serving as the treasurer of the South Metro Atlanta Chapter of the Emerging 100. I'm not a Georgia native, but I've been here for 10 years. I hail from the great state of Florida, graduate of Florida A&M University. I have a master's in business administration. I previously worked, I know a couple of rebels out there. Previously worked for the city of Atlanta, where I managed the purchasing for the mayor's office as well as the IT department. I have recently transitioned to the private sector, which has afforded me more time to contribute to other nonprofit organizations such as Emerging 100, I Am College, and a few others to help try and empower our community and make sure that not only our voice counts, but our lives matter as well. So that's a little bit about me. I thank you all for joining us as one of the members of the organization that's kind of spearheading this. We really appreciate everyone making time out of their busy schedules to come together and bring all these brilliant Black minds today to have a discussion that's going to hopefully move Georgia across that line.
Awesome. And thank you, Carlos, for hosting us. And last but not least, Carly Swift.
Hey, Dasheika, let me start over again. I'm so excited to be on this panel with all y'all. I mean, it's just a great, I feel like, thanks for letting me come and hang out with y'all for an hour. But a little bit about myself. I too am an Atlanta native and an APS grad. I attended the High School. Shout out to the Panthers. We're talking about high schools in Atlanta. And I've been working, I was a community advocate. I've been working on over the past 2 years specifically in fundraising and grassroots organizing. I co-founded an organization called Georgia Forward this year, and it's a PAC that was organized to raise money for the top 20 Democratic candidates who are most likely to flip the state house. And I co-led a fundraising effort for the Democratic U.S. Senate candidates. But I'm most proud of the grassroots work that I've done, really reaching voters door to door. So I've been organizing canvases and literature drops in House District 89, which is House District is represented.
Carly, your audio is a little spotty.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
It's still a little muffled.
Okay, I'll switch to, you want to come back to me?
We'll come back to you.
Audio.
So thank you all so much for that. We are really excited to have you all. So let's go ahead and get started. So my first question is for everyone on the panel. I've had the pleasure of knowing most of you and am familiar with all of your work that you've been doing, whether you're a former elected official or candidate, a political operative, or involved in voter education. You all have been on the front lines of the work that has helped us get to this very moment. But however, many of our viewers might not be familiar with what you do. So can you talk to us about your work and how your work has contributed to the moment and the momentum we're seeing right now? And this is for everyone, so just feel free to jump in. I know this panel is not shy. I'll start calling on people.
I can go first. So I started the Equity Alliance a week after the 2016 election, and that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Starting, in my early 30s, I had my son 2 days before Trayvon Martin was killed, and that really struck me as my political awakening to say I have to do something more. And so as the Black Lives Matter movement was progressing, and as more and more of our Black men and boys were being shot at the hands of police, I felt really, really compelled. And when Donald Trump got elected, it was just like, I got to do something, right? And so long story short, we met I'm sorry, my son. We met a week after the 2016 election and wanted to start the organization to really engage Black voters across the state in a non-traditional way. When I was working on political campaigns, we had to often rely on white consultants to tell us how to engage the Black vote. And that just didn't sit right with us. We were going to housing projects and they were telling us, don't even bother because those folks don't even vote. And so that was my people and they deserve a voice. So as the Equity Alliance, what we essentially do is if there are 10 houses on the street and 7 of those houses are registered to vote, we want to go talk to the other 3 because we want to expand the electorate and bring more voices into the fold and make Black voters more self-determinant in making the decisions for themselves. So as the Equity Alliance, in 2016, some of our accomplishments for the midterms, we launched the Tennessee Black Voter Project. We coalitioned over 25 organizations to register over 55,000 people to vote across the state, particularly Black and brown voters. We were going to Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Madison, Tennessee, and we were so successful, we submitted 91,000 voter registration forms to the state. That was a big success because it hadn't been done before in Tennessee. The thing that happened, though, was our state legislature, which is a supermajority, we have a Republican supermajority, they caught wind that these Black folks was registering people to vote. So they, the next year, retaliated against our organization and introduced a law that would have made it the most aggressive civil and criminal penalties against voter registration, up to a year in jail and a $10,000 fine. So we had to fight that law tooth and nail. We organized one of the largest protests that year in 2019 at the Capitol. Unfortunately, our governor passed it into law, but the same day we filed a lawsuit, and months later we won that lawsuit to roll back that unconstitutional law. So we're proud about that. In 2020, we have reached over 350,000 Black voters across the state through text messages, phone, our I'm Black and I Vote tour, doing community engagement events across the state, phone calls. I mean, we put our bodies on the line and risked our health in a pandemic to reach people where they are. And that's what we pride ourselves on, is we're the boots on the ground in the street, and we're going to go where the voters are, whether that's in nightclubs, laundromats, churches, festivals, wherever. That's where we're going. And we're proud of the work that we've done in Tennessee. This year, a record number of 4.4 million people registered to vote, and a record number of people voted in this election, over 3 million people. And we're proud to say that we've been a part of that change. It didn't happen overnight. We were 50th in voter turnout in 2014. We're now 45th in voter turnout. Still not a great number, but the numbers are trending up. So we're proud about that. And we're right on the coattails of Georgia to flip Tennessee blue.
Awesome. One election at a time. Thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Kiana?
I could just feel you were going to call me Dasheika. So I was preparing myself for that. But yeah, so I started working on 2020 and 2019. So I originally started on the presidential primary. After my candidate dropped out, I then worked for Organizing Corps. And Organizing Corps was part of a training program to train young people to get on the campaign. So we really recruited people in diverse communities, people that wouldn't normally work on campaigns, to give them that opportunity. And I'm telling this story to say that that's similar to how I got into campaigns. I didn't know much about it. I didn't even know people got paid to work on campaigns, didn't know this was a career choice, and didn't know that I could be a part of helping people get elected. And so, you know, I'm really passionate about making sure that our space is inclusive and that we're diverse, because as some of you know on this panel, that this is not the case for a lot of campaigns, or not a diverse space. So that's something that I'm really passionate about, is making sure that other young people and people of color are able to join campaigns and get on it as well. Specifically now, I'm working on Reverend Warnock's campaign. I've been on since the general, so I was here in June, and now I'm in the runoff. And I work in the digital team, specifically on grassroots fundraising. So the text messages you see, grassroots donor captains, those are all people on my team. And this runoff so far, we've raised over $3 million with grassroots donors. So, you know, we're just really excited about the energy that's been happening, and just people just really wanting to get involved in any way they can. So grassroots donating shows that, you know, we don't have to rely on PACs. We can really lean into our supporters, and we've had over 20,000 contributions through small donations through grassroots. So I'm just excited to continue this work and do our final push in the last 18 days. Keep looking for those text messages, because it's my team that's sending it to you, and just excited for the work we're doing.
Most people have commented that they've gotten more text messages from the campaigns than they have their significant other. So keep up the good job. Next, we have Courtney. Courtney, you're on mute.
I don't think I muted. Okay. Am I good? Okay, cool. What's up, everybody? Courtney English here. Listen, man, as I said earlier, listen, the most probably, outside from being my mother's son, you know, the most important thing that folks need to know about me is that I'm a son of Atlanta. I'm a proud graduate of Douglas High School, proud graduate of Morehouse College. I was a founding teacher at Best Academy, the first all-boys school here in the city in 60 years. I spent 8 years on the school board, 4 of those as chair, have been spending the last 4 years of my life really trying to develop the Atlanta community. We know that Atlanta far too often is leading the nation in terms of economic inequality, in terms of child poverty, in terms or dead last rather, in terms of economic mobility. And all at the same time, you know, we are heralded as, to some people, to be what's the fictitious name of Wakanda, if you will. And so I've been working really, really hard for the past, really all my life, but specifically for the past 4 years to change that. I've been especially focused on these Senate seats. We are running a canvas and phone bank every single day. We're putting 200 folks on the street. to knock on doors and advocate on behalf of principles that will value all people, healthcare for all people, high quality education for all people, high quality jobs for all people. And so I've been working really, really hard on those efforts. And so this election is absolutely critical. As a native son of Atlanta, I can't leave without saying how important it is for us in the city of Atlanta and the metro area to get out and vote. We kind of underperform in some places in the city, and I want to see that turn around. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that happens.
Awesome. We are going to speed this up a little bit more. Elena.
We can see you.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. So I kind of touched on it earlier in my introduction. I do a lot of work with campaigns, so identifying those leaders in the community, those good people, those qualified people, and giving them the tools they need to get elected and to push progressive and good policies. Additionally, I do a lot of like project management work and things with nonprofits just to also make sure that they have all the resources they need to be successful. So I plug in where I'm needed. Currently, there's a new initiative called Party at the Mailbox that I want everybody to go sign up for. And it's a nonprofit called Black Girls Vote, and they are pushing for more voter engagement through innovative ways. And they are sending out free gift boxes to anyone that signs up and pledges to go vote and bring a few folks with them on election day. So that's just one of the many things that I'm working on. But again, I plug in where I'm needed. So wherever you need me, I go.
I love that. We'll do one more. Let's do Carlos, and then the rest of the answers will be kind of tied into some of the other questions.
All right. Yes. As you all know, I work with the Emerging 100. We've been doing a series of initiatives since I'll say maybe late spring. We've been a part of several coalitions with NAACP, the 100 Black Women of Atlanta, and a few others such as DTLR and Noble. And what we've done throughout this upcoming election cycle and post has been pretty significant. We've done a series of virtual town halls. We've done some in-person touch points with DTLR to try and not only address the voting discrepancies and the suppression that has been employed in Georgia, but we also have addressed the census, and we had a strong campaign leading up for the census as well. Working alongside the mayor of East Point and the city council of East Point has afforded us the opportunity to have a little bit more reach than some organizations are typically afforded. So we try and take full advantage of that. And in addition to working with brilliant minds like you all to help spread our message and to reach our goal of educating and mobilization of those in our community that we feel have often overlooked the process. So right now we're in our final push to try and get as many Georgia residents that are registered to the polls between now and the 5th of January. Our objective is to make sure that Georgia goes true blue and to ensure that we have the right representation in the both House, Senate, and the White House for us moving forward for these next 4 years.
There we go, the trifecta. So thank you guys so much for all your hard work. Many of you guys have been at this a very long time. And every election cycle, it's inevitable that you hear the line, this is the most consequential election of our lifetime, right? But truer words could not have been spoken this year. We saw that especially in the presidential election. Weeks ago, it seemed like the whole country was celebrating with us. Shoot, if we're honest, most people are still celebrating, saying that we did it. We turned Georgia blue, we elected Joe Biden, we elected the first Black woman, Vice President Kamala Harris, end of story. And as the excitement starts to kind of fade, some might say, well, why do I have to turn around and go back to the polls and vote again? I want to pose this question to Kiana and Courtney specifically. What do you say to those people who may not understand the importance of voting in the runoff election?
Well, I would say in order for Joe Biden to have a strong presidency, we have to have the Senate too. You know, we can't just rely on the seats that we want in Congress. We need the Senate seats as well. Right now, if our two candidates get elected, Democratic candidates, we would then be 50-50 split, and then Kamala Harris would be the deciding vote. So as you can see, that would help Joe Biden be able to get his policies passed and be able to really put forth the change that not only we need in our country, but Georgians as well. And we want senators that represent the state of Georgia. We want our senators to really be for the people, and that's what Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff do. They're for the people. They're out there talking to everyone in the communities, in the small towns to the big cities. That's what they're really doing. And, you know, our current senators don't represent the people of Georgia. It doesn't represent what's going to be changed when the census comes out. The minorities are more majorities, and we really need to have that representation. So, you know, I'm putting plug for Reverend Warnock, but he would be the first Black senator from the state of Georgia, and I think that's huge and shows the progress that our state is making. And so, even if you don't fully buy into the you know, needing that 50-50 split, at least know the historical context of this race and electing a Democrat to represent Georgia as well, and continue the blue train that's already started in Georgia.
Awesome. Courtney?
So I'll say this very quickly because I know there are a ton of great people behind me. You can't vote away hate. But what you can do is vote for people who believe that all people deserve a right to health care, a right to education, a right to a quality job that pays a living wage. You can't vote away sexism, but what you can do is vote in people who believe in a woman's right to choose, who believe that women should earn as equal, if not more, than their male counterparts. You can't vote away misogyny. You can't vote away homophobia. You cannot vote away so many things that plague our society. But what you can do is vote for people who believe that all people have earned and deserve a seat at the table. And that's ultimately what this election is about. And so really what we have on the table is two candidates from the conservative side who seemingly are diametrically opposed to basic human rights. And so when I think about the importance of this election, I think about things like healthcare and affordable housing. I think about education. I think about earning a living wage. I think about a woman's right to choose. I think about women earning just as much as their male counterparts for doing the exact same job. I think about all of those things that impact our lives so very much every single day. And so that's really what this election is about. This isn't, you know, some elections are hard. This isn't one of those that is all that difficult. And so you have a stark contrast between candidates. And so for all those people who love all people, who believe all people should have access to basic human rights, you know, I urge you to get involved in this campaign.
No, thank you so much for that. Y'all both touched on what's at stake both nationally and for Georgians. I'm curious, what's personally at stake for you and your family during this election? I'm going to kick over to Carlos.
So I think personally for me and my family, the same issues that are plaguing most of families across Georgia and America are at stake here. There are still pandemic that we're all wrestling with and that we're looking to try and get organization with. And right now, our current leadership is absent and has been void of leadership, you know, since the onset of this pandemic. And so I think this election will not only ensure that the action items that Vice President-elect, or President-elect, I should say, Biden puts forth is actually supported by the Congress and can quickly process through Congress to make it to the people, but it will ensure that all action items that are what we would call practical and sensible, such as gun control, such as you know, immigration reform, all of these matters that normally get clogged up, even stimulus for those who are currently unemployed and those who are facing shortages in their household. These are all wrapped within this election. And you know, my home is no different than the next. we're all looking for some sort of relief and some sort of, leadership that will afford us the opportunity to really feel as if our hard-earned tax dollars are actually being put to use, and we're getting what we're investing in when it comes to our citizenship and what the country owes us as citizens. So personally, those are a few of the things I feel are at stake. But again, I'm no different than the next man. I think we all at this point have embraced the same struggles, and we're all just looking for the proper leadership, which I hope that we can obtain from the election here in Georgia.
No, thank you so much for that. You actually touched on something that I wanted to kind of get to next. A lot of people are kind of think about elected officials as these saviors, right? And right now we're in this moment where elected officials are creating these groundswells and really connecting with communities and being partners with communities. I want to kick this over to Carly. As the whole world is watching us, how do you see the election of Reverend Warnock and Jon Ossoff actually benefiting the people of Georgia?
Thanks, Dasheika. I think, can you hear me? Okay. So the election of Reverend Warnock and Jon Ossoff is going to be a historic moment for Georgia, because it will be the first time in probably a decade that we've sent 2 Democratic senators to Washington. What that means is, at this point, they are potentially the 2 Senate seats that could give the Democrats the majority. And that's going to make a huge difference in those issues that, and I'm sorry, I missed the person's name, but the person who just spoke about the issues that were important to them. It's going to be, in order for the Democrats to actually be able to move forward, move any legislation, actually get things done, they've got to be able to, they need that power. We have to take the gavel away from Mitch McConnell. So I think that's why it's so historic. And I think that's why there is so much momentum. It's also momentous because it's the potential to send the first Black man from Georgia to the Senate.
That's definitely huge.
That's huge.
And considering there's only 3 Black members of the Senate right now, with the departure of Senator Harris as well.
Right. And it would be a Black man from the South. So, we all talk about Andre 3000's famous quote, the South got something to say. And if we can send Reverend Warnock and Jon Ossoff to the Senate, it's going to be a huge sea change. You're sending probably the youngest person and then the first Black man from Georgia.
So, so we now know why this election is so important, right? Which is also the reason why you're probably getting flooded with advertisements, mailers, TV ads. There's a lot of momentum this election cycle. Some people think the momentum appeared overnight, or it's solely an anti-Trump movement, when in reality, as Charlene said, this is the harvest of the hard work of organizers and activists and organizations like the New Georgia Project, the Equity Alliance, and EMPOWRD. I want to kick this over to Greg. Can you talk about the work it took to get us here, and is that work sustainable?
Okay, I'm on. Dasheika, I think when it comes to this type of work, we've got to believe in the very essence of everything that we work for, everything that we're striving for. We've got to believe that it's sustainable. And to your point of this work not happening overnight, there are so many people that stood up, folks like Stacey Abrams, folks like at the New Georgia Project that stood up, and there was this big rally cry, not just around the topics that need to be discussed, but also those resources to sustain this conversation. All of those conversations gave cover fire to advocates and civic leaders like me, folks that are rumbling and tumbling, that now have the courage to say, hey, I want to step out there and get involved in the civic process. And so, when starting from this broader perspective around, this national tone that's been set, and all the infrastructure, the people infrastructure that's been built over time, I really, really do think it's sustainable. Building that confidence again through what we're doing with EMPOWRD, it's about Dasheika taking that political energy and really transferring it into this civic space, where civic engagement requires a little bit more than just casting a ballot at the ballot box. But the worlds are just so similar when it comes to pushing policy, when it comes to advocating for resources, and also when it comes to changing the community for better. And so we're hoping that those same people with the antennas that are up very, very high and all the organizations that are doing good work and all this interest on Georgia, hoping that it stays here, because, you know, you've just got so many people that are leaning in and now have the confidence to lean in with some of the strategies that have been in play for, you know, 5, 6, you know,
No,
even
absolutely.
a decade, 5, 6 years.
And talking about that work, we talk about the fundamentals that have been built in Georgia, but we have people that are working all across the country, especially in the South, right? There's this whole new emerging of the new South, this new electorate. Charlene, I want to talk to you. I wanted to kind of kick to you. How does this Georgia election impact the rest of the country, especially states like Tennessee?
You know, I'm just so elated of what's happening in Georgia, because, you know, the South got something to say. We've been had something to say. And I'm just so glad that the rest of the country is like catching up to what's happening in the South. There is organizing happening in the South, not just in Georgia. It's happening in Tennessee. It's happening in Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, South Carolina. Like, there are, you know, we like to prop up Stacey Abrams, and she deserved all her flowers. But there are Stacey Abrams in every state in the South happening right here, fighting for voting rights, fighting against voter suppression. This work did not happen overnight. It has taken a grassroots movement of organizers, of activists, constantly pushing, constantly speaking truth to power. And, you know, the New Georgia Project, thankfully, it came with investment. The New Georgia Project started in 2013, 2014, registering all those voters for the 2014 midterms. So you got to start somewhere. And that's what we did in Tennessee. We started with voter registration, but that's not all we do. And it has to take a constant pushing up against the powers that be. And it's organizing. It's not just organizing around elections. That's what we don't do. We organize all year round around issues, because it's the issues that people are impacted by that is going to motivate them to go vote. We can't just sit here and, you know, do things as politics as usual and just show up to our churches and expect to get our vote. No, like, Black people are relational creatures. We have to trust you. And so you have to show up in our communities year round. And that's what it's going to take to sustain this movement, is year round engagement. It's not just the Georgia Senate races. It's not just the presidential races that we have to pay attention to. It's those local races. It's the DA races. It's the judges, and it's the city council and the mayoral races that we have to hold on to that power to sustain it. So I'm just glad that Georgia put the South back on the map, and we're right, like I said, we're right behind them. Tennessee is over here building independent Black political power 365 days a year, and we're gonna keep doing it. And I'm just glad that Georgia is leading the way to systemic change.
So while everyone is really excited about what's happening in Georgia, you know, I want to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room. Speaking of that momentum and Georgia leading the way, historically, it's been a struggle to turn out voters in off-cycle elections, especially runoffs in Georgia. Democrats typically haven't really fared well in runoff elections. However, we have saw historic turnouts both in the June primary and in November. Currently, we're tracking to beat those records. As of yesterday, I think we had more than 915,000 people who casted their votes early. What makes this moment so different? Is it timing? Is it the candidates? Is it both? And I want to give this to Elena.
That was a great question, Dasheika. So I think it's a combination of all of it. As we know, this is such a historical race because our lives are on this ballot, right? This is just not your ordinary race. We see the collective country coming together under a common cause and descending to Georgia to fight for these two senators. That is not traditional. That is not typical, because we understand the high stakes of these races and how this will impact our livelihoods for a really long time. It's really exciting to see, and I anticipate this reshaping how we engage voters. I think Charlene said it really well about just not engaging them and energizing them during an election, but always making them aware of the issues and how to engage engage and how to amplify their voices. So I really see folks understanding that democracy is not a spectator sport. And if we want our vote to count, we have to vote every single election like our lives depend on it. And it sounds cliche, but right now it really feels like it does.
It definitely does. It definitely does. You and Charlene touched on something that I want to kind of talk about. Right now, understandably, the focus is on this runoff election. And I think Greg mentioned it as well. We need to be thinking beyond January, right? How do we keep this momentum that we build in November and we're building in January going? How do we capture this moment and energy to build power for local elections and midterms and referendums and everything that kind of comes on the ballot going forward past January? And I'll just open this up to the group.
Organize, organize, organize. I mean, I'm a firm believer. You got to organize people and organize our money. We got to stay engaged and keep those people that are voting on the rolls right now and give them something to come out to, next month and then following month. Keep following up with these people. Give them something to volunteer for. So there's no shortage of issues out here right now that are affecting Black folks. Look at the coronavirus pandemic. Look at criminal justice reform, defunding the police. All of these things are impacting us. There's no shortage of things to get involved in right now. So it's all about sustaining that power and continuing the momentum to the next election and keep grabbing the power.
And I think I just think it's important that candidates, campaigns, they can't just be in communities when they're getting elected. It is about relational. It's all about relationships. That's no matter where you are. If it's work, it's in your outside of your volunteer life. So that's the big difference I'm seeing, that there are so many organizations that are in Georgia now that are staying in Georgia that are doing the work. I mean, Greg's EMPOWRD organization, you have New Georgia Project, but then these candidates have to realize that, it's on them to keep their voters motivated. And that means they need to be passing legislation that is going to impact the lives of the people that voted for them. They need to be in the community actually doing things that help their voters. And if they're not doing that, then I'm sorry, it's on them. It's not our responsibility as a voter to keep ourselves engaged. They have to be a part of that process.
And I want to add to, when it comes to, I think what you were even mentioning, Charlene, when it comes to the issue conversation, a lot of the advocates that I'm running into, they don't even have, Facebook pages or websites. They're just getting their community folks together and they're rumbling and tumbling and saying, hey, Mr. Clay, this is what's important to us. And when you boil down why they're coming to the table, it's not just about criminal justice reform. They're getting more educated on issues specific to their neighborhoods. As a Black man born in the inner city, I want to hear about solutions to workforce development. I want to hear about solutions to affordability. I want to hear about solutions, not just at the city and the county building, but all the way up to the White House and the legislatures that work with the president. And so making the issue specific, Charlene, to your point, I think that's how we keep this stickiness there. But again, that people infrastructure that I referenced before, you don't have to have, for those folks watching, $100,000 in the 501c3. We're running into people that are just saying, hey, I've got a phone line up, I've got an email address, and I'm ready to get to it. But, that energy and that passion is what's going to keep us there in the game. And I think us as leaders are the folks that have to say, hey, get organized, make sure that you meet on a regular basis. Make sure that when it comes to sustaining these conversations, this is what a committee meeting looks like at City Hall. This is when the legislature starts at the Capitol. You need to be talking to a state rep versus a county commissioner, right? And giving young folks that advice to make sure that that energy doesn't die in their minds when it comes to the types of enemies that are out there telling them that they can't do what it is that they need to do.
So I just want to add, I ditto everyone, what everybody else said, man. These are some brilliant minds. Everybody else is dope, and I'm pointing at all of you. I just said this. I got a good friend of mine who talks about the 3 feet of space around you. And what he means when he says is, like, we can talk about events, we can talk about issues, we can talk about people, We can talk about all these things that are, that may seem bigger than ourselves. But what does it mean to have a conversation with somebody in your household? What does it mean to have a conversation with somebody outside of in your family? What does it mean to have a conversation with the favorite restaurant? The bartender at your favorite restaurant, or the waiter at your favorite restaurant, the person who delivers your mail. And so, think about, we can do all of these big bucket things, and we should be having all these conversations. We should be engaging all these people, but make sure you don't forget about home, right? Because I guarantee you that you absolutely know somebody, right? That you know somebody closely, and you talk to them regularly. You interact with them on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, or on a monthly basis, that is not engaged in the process, doesn't know who to vote for, what to vote for, or even when to vote, right? So think about that in the context of this election, right? And so engage those folks and have conversations real on a low level. Hey, bro, have you voted? If you haven't, come vote with me, man. I will show you how, and I will go vote with you. I will teach you how to sign up, so on and so forth. And we can go vote together. And so, because I feel like we often have these, we often get in a space where we have these big events, right? Or we have these large conversations, and it's like, yo, our bartender hadn't voted, right? Or the person who works at a restaurant hadn't voted, or a person who cleans our laundry hadn't voted. And we got to go engage those folks. And so take care of the 3 feet of space around you. If you don't do anything else, have conversations with folks who are close to you, and we'll see a difference in this election.
No, I think that's extremely important. Taking care of home first, right? It's all about what Kiana touched on earlier about the relational organizing. Like, the best way you can organize people is the people that you know, having conversations with those people. We do have a question from the audience, and then it's going to be our final question. Right now, we find ourselves in this pivotal moment. We're in COVID still. We have made history, not only flipping Georgia blue, but also running campaigns in the middle of a pandemic, which has been very hard. Right. And so one of the things that has been a struggle for most of the campaigns is how to engage young people, specifically college students. We know a lot of the AU Center schools are not on campus right now. People are leaving early. There's virtual learning. How do we engage those young people to make sure that they come out and vote again? And it's just for anyone.
So I would say I'm fairly young, the young millennial bracket. But I think one thing that the pandemic actually did help with campaigns is that it made us more creative, and we had to use very tactics to reach everyone. And honestly, the biggest thing was digital, which is the space that I work in. And just having to come up with creative events and do things to really reach people in a way that is more intentional than before. Traditional tactics, knocking on doors, making calls, texting. But now we've moved out. We can't necessarily do those in-person moments, and we can't have those in-person phone banks anymore. So having to move to more digital means is a way to really get young voters to the polls, is just meeting them where they are. And I think what makes this election so different from 2016 is that people have hope again in the electoral process. I know I had a lot of friends who voted in 2016, some people for the first time who got to vote for the presidential election, and they were disappointed because it felt like their votes didn't matter, because we saw that we won the popular vote, but then someone else got elected. And so I think the fact now that we're in this place where people are seeing that their vote actually did translate to getting someone elected, it's like, keep that same energy all the time. Being able to not only get all this attention right now that we're doing for the Senate race, do this for ballot initiatives. Why aren't we investing in these ballot measures that we want to see with that same energy of hitting the pavement, texting everyone nonstop, getting virtual events about it? The way that you keep people's attention is to keep their attention and keep hammering them with that. And I think if we have that same energy in the other elections that are coming up, and the ballot measures, and the issues that we're really fighting for. That's the way to get young people to stay engaged, is to keep engaging them in ways where they are.
I love that, meeting them where they are.
I love
Yeah,
I think one more thing is, sorry. So I think one more to add on to everything that Kiana said is, like, rhetoric needs to die, needs to be dead now. These young people want policy points. These young people want ballot initiatives. They don't want high level hope. They want to know what you're going to do for climate change, how you're going to make housing affordable. That's these sticky words. Disaggregate that into next steps and tell me what that looks like for me and how it's going to impact my life. I love how they're disrupting the traditional layout of politicians being able to speak in high-level rhetoric and get away with it. They're holding their feet to the fire, and if you're going to come to them, you better come correctly, or they are going to burn you. And I think that this moment has activated them, and everything Kiana said, we have to keep them engaged, because our best ideas come from our young people. Our innovative ways come from our young people, and we silence them often, right? Because we're afraid of what they have to say, not realizing that we're not progressing where we should be because we're not including the right people on the bus. So we need to get them on the bus and keep them on the bus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I would add to that I think one of the things that we have to do is start putting their issues at the forefront when we address them. They're, although young, they're getting ready to enter the world and find out that, what was sweet on the yard won't necessarily be there for you once you enter the workforce. So I think that a lot of things that we should start doing is showing them the discrepancies in things such as the average wage that we now hear is being pursued for $15 an hour, but yet in the state of Georgia, more specifically in the city of Atlanta, to have a average lifestyle in Atlanta, you need to make at least $24 an hour. So I think being able to kind of stop applying a blanket Band-Aid approach and making them stand up for the things that are speaking specifically to them, including the cost of tuition, affordable housing, so that you can afford to stay in the cities in which you earn your degrees and become a part of the fabric of that community as well, or you can afford to go home to your hometown and impact that community as well. But I think that overall, to engage the young voters, we have to continue to put all of their issues on the forefront, request that they show up and hold those elected officials accountable throughout not just the election year, but the 2 years between the Senate and the House election, the 4 years between the presidential election, so that when it's time to vote again, we don't need to review your resume. We've been holding you accountable. We've been watching you the entire time, and now we can put your feet to the fire and we can bubble you in or out.
And I want to add regarding the young folks, man. I think it's just some awesome energy around this conversation, which lends itself to the type of leaders that we all are. I mean, I'm running into leaders that won't be able to vote in the next 5-6 years. We're running into leaders that are saying, hey, I want to be an advocate in the space that I'm in because of what I've been enduring my whole life, and I'm in the 6th or 7th grade. What do those tools look like in order for me to change what I saw on the way home? What are those things that I need to change because I hadn't been able to get on the internet for 3 weeks? So I've been missing class. I know this ain't right. I need to change it. Those are voices that I think are going to groundswell after years like these. And we've got to be responsible enough to empower, to coach, to have the patience with those young folks that can't even cast a ballot yet because they're just too young. And I think the way we nurture, the way we train, the way we guide our youth without, putting a box around them, I think it's going to be the game changer in our community to where when they get our age, it's not that, hey, they're trying to compete with us. It's they're trying to build a legacy around the issues that they've been chronically seeing as well, same as our generation. And so I'm inspired by it. I think it's some great energy, and I think everybody's hitting the nail on the head.
So one quick point, I said this in 2 seconds. Let me say this. I'm just building on that point that Greg said. We also got to be willing to help them move some folks out of the way. There's some folks in the way right now who are impediments to criminal justice reform. They're impediments to social justice. They're impediments to affordable housing. They're impediments to all the things that all the folks on this call believe in, right? And so we got to help them We're going to help ourselves move those folks out the way. And it's really that simple, right? I'm done waiting on the torch to get passed. I'm done waiting on, you know, somebody somewhere to give us permission. It's like, nah, if it's us, if it's the generation behind us, we got to be willing to take a stand. And I know everybody on this call believes that. We got to be willing to move some folks out of the way. And here's the deal. I'm going to go even one step further. It might not be us, right? It doesn't mean that we have to be their elected officials. It might necessarily mean like we got to pave the way, help some folks, move some other folks out of the way so that the young generation, the generations even behind us can come behind and take those spots too, right? So like we got to be willing to make some courageous decisions and get some folks up out of there who hadn't been doing what was necessary to benefit all the just causes that we've all been espousing on this call. So
it's all about accountability. The election is not meant for us to vote people in and then leave them into their magical, mythical offices and never talk to them again. It's about they work for us. So I agree with you, Courtney. So that is our time. Before we leave, I do want to do a rapid round. Literally in 2 seconds, I want everyone to kind of go around and say, how can our viewers get involved with the Senate election? Like how can they impact the Senate election? We'll start with Greg.
First, download EMPOWRD, EMPOWRD. Second, find something and stick with it for now, and let it change over time. Find something right now, stick with it. Work the grindstone, get it done, and let it change over time or evolve over time. But stay committed.
Awesome, Courtney.
I will say, take care of your 3 feet of space. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your bartenders, talk to your restaurant workers, your barber, and everybody in between about making sure they got to vote. And then after you do that, download EMPOWRD.
There you go. Charlene?
For folks that are out of state like me, donate to the candidates directly, donate to the Democratic Party, donate to grassroots organizations, and offer to phone bank, offer to text bank. Those are things you can do from your couch.
Awesome. Kiana? I think she is frozen. We'll go to Carly.
Okay, so just like what everybody said, you can canvas, you can lit drop, you can phone bank. Go to mobilize.com. You should be able to put in your zip code and see what's happening. If you're interested this weekend in DeKalb County, I will be canvassing for House District 89. I think I had somebody drop the sign up link in the Facebook chat. You can sign up there. We're going to be you can knock on doors, you can lit drop, you can pick up a sign. So there are so many opportunities that don't require money for you to actually get involved and actually help us change the political landscape here in Georgia.
Awesome. Kiana, I think you're back.
Yeah, I was struggling with the mute button. But no, I was going to say the same thing Carly said. Mobilize.us, go and see what opportunities are on there to get involved. And then I'd also just say, not only make your plan to vote, but see when your friends, your family, your network is voting. I did a poll on Twitter just to see when people are voting, and people took the poll and said, I'm voting at the end of the week, I'm voting next week, and just do little things like that to keep the conversation going. I know we're getting inundated by text, but keep it going. Keep telling people.
Carlos?
I second what we've already discussed and said. I think one of the key things is to make sure that everyone just shows up in the space that you're already in. If you spend the majority of your day, on Instagram or on Facebook, and your following is very engaged with you, go ahead and change the topic in this discussion to something that's actually going to impact you and your followers. If you're not in the state of Georgia, you can still lend your hand. If you can't lend your funds, you can phone bank, you can get on your social media platforms, and also encourage Georgia residents and even reach out to those that you do know that are here to join the movement and make sure that their voice is heard. We have a very small window, but I'm very confident that Georgia can get it done and that we can really turn the state blue and make the changes that we need to make happen. Please follow the Emerging 100 South Metro on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and continue to follow all of these brilliant minds that we brought today as we continue to all push for the common goal of change and empowerment in Georgia.
Awesome. Thanks for the shout out. And Elena?
Oh man, you put me in a tough spot. So in addition to everything everyone else says, so ditto what y'all said, I think what wasn't mentioned is line warm. You can head out on an election day and you can stand out there and you can encourage voters that showed up on the very last day to vote and make sure they stayed there. They stay in line. You remind them that our lives are at stake and it's worth the 10 minutes, it's worth the hour, it's worth the 3 hours. So if you have time on election day, you can go out there and send some encouragement, send some coffee because it may be cold, but just keep people energized and let them know that we appreciate them.
And that's so important, Elena. Thank you so much for that. Well, that is our time. As you can see, this is a very important topic, and it's one that everyone on this panel, I'm sure, can talk about for hours. I really want to say thank you for our amazing panelists for their insightful words and the work that they have been doing to get us to this moment right now. Thank you for the Emerging 100 of South Metro Atlanta and all the sponsors for putting this event together. Guys, we are in such a watershed moment. You heard from the panelists what's at stake, not only for Georgia, but for this entire country. We simply cannot afford to sit this one out. Everyone has a part to play. You heard all the advice of how you can get involved. Not only should you vote, you should make sure that everyone around you votes. I love the 3 fee analogy that Courtney talked about. But remember, Election Day is not just January 5th, right? Election Day is happening now. Early voting started on Monday. It goes through January 1st. You have multiple opportunities to make sure that your voice is heard. If you need to find an early voting location, you can go to the Secretary of State's website. We'll drop it in the chat. If you requested your absentee ballot, please, 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 please don't forget to mail it off or drop it in your local drop box, because they must be in the hands of the elected official or the elections officials by 7 p.m. on January the 5th to count. This is our moment, y'all. This is what we have been working for. This is where the blood, sweat, and tears of organizing has gotten us to, and it's up to us. We did it in November, and we can do it again. Make your voice count. The world is counting on us. Thank you guys so much.
Let's get it. Let's get it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay.
How do I get out?